The lobby glass held the city like a cold breath. Inside, Meridian's light ran glossy over marble, leather, chrome, each surface polished into an argument about who belonged. The room smelled of lemon oil, seared fat, and something sweet from the pastry pass. Aidan Cole stood with his hands loose at his sides, reservation folded once in his pocket, heat sealed by calm. Back off. Man, someone said, that booth's taken. Two bodies were sprawled over the corner VIP, shoes on the bench as if it were a couch. The guy had gym shoulders under a blazer that fit like money. The woman faced her phone, ring light clipped to the case, voice pitched to travel. Their table candle reached up, searching for air. The camera found Aidan and stayed there. Guys, she chirped to her audience. You won't believe this. He had dressed the way he liked to disappear, charcoal sweater, jeans washed almost gray, boots too clean to be new. Nothing on him gleamed. He looked like a man who read menus and ate whatever the kitchen did best. Then left. I have a reservation, he said. He placed his voice in the room like a glass you didn't want spilling. Table 7, 9 p.m. The hostess glanced up and passed him in the same motion. We're at capacity, she said. Delays tonight. The system released no shows. I'm early, he said, and looked at his watch. The second hand slid like a polite knife. Her smile widened by the millimeter. That means go away. We can seat you at 12, she added. Lovely view of the kitchen. A laugh ran through the nearest tables. Light and mean. Forks paused over scallops. Phones lifted. Aidan set his hands on the podium's edge and didn't press. I booked 7, he said, and took the folded sheet from his pocket. The paper had a weight to it, heavy stock with a faint, glossy tooth. He'd printed it out of habit, as if ink still made deals real. He laid it flat, smoothed the crease with 2 fingers. The guy in the booth leaned back, both arms spread. Possession. Bro, he said, 9/10. We're comfortable. The woman pivoted her phone, catching Aidan's face. The paper, the candle's tired flame. Comments began to climb in neat stacked line. Little hearts drifted upward like helium. Aidan caught the scent of caramelizing sugar pastry torch flaring off behind the bar. Sulfure air. There and gone. It stung the back of his throat with a memory he didn't invite. Sir, the hostess said, softer but not kinder. We do have our policy. Show me, he said. She blinked. The screen stayed in her hands. Excuse me. The policy, he said. I'll wait. Emma, the general manager, cut in, appearing with a smile that had ended 1,000 disputes. I'll handle it. David Carter wore his suit-like armor and his watch like a certificate. He stepped between Aidan and the booth as if any gap offered risk. What seems to be the confusion? He asked. Not confused, Aidan said. Reserved 7 for 9. The system released it. David's glance to the hostess was small but visible. We had a window, he said. Our grace period is 5 minutes, Aidan said. Industry standard. 2, David said. On peak nights. The couple laughed without humor. The woman tilting her phone said, Hear that? Peak night. Try a drive-through. Aidan studied David. The way you study a lock. You know how to open but won't. The GM's mouth held a shape like he'd rehearsed empathy. The scent of lemon oil thickened. Somewhere in the back, a pan hit metal. The sound rang quick, thin as a coin. I'm here at 8:57, Aidan said. I'll wait for 9. The booth is occupied, David said. We can find you a comparable experience. There's no comparable, Aidan said. He looked toward 7. You could see the river from there where it hooked under the bridge like a muscle. The candle on that table flinched. The man in the booth reached over and plucked at the reservation printout like it was a coaster. Cute, he said. He tore it cleanly, halves fluttering to the floor. The woman ground her stiletto heel on the pieces until ink smudged the marble gray. Aiden's jaw did not change. His fingers tightened once and left white moons at the nails. He breathed through the sulfur that wasn't there anymore. "Sir," David said, "I'll have security escort you to 12. Just say him outside," the woman said brightly. "Or in the bathroom." "Kidding, not kidding." A server hovered a step away. Trey clutched to his chest like a shield. Young, dark hair, brown eyes flicking between faces. He had a name tag that said Luis in neat block letters, but a colleague had scrawled Rodriguez smaller in pen underneath, like a correction that never got updated in the system. "You okay?" the guy asked the manager. Low. "We're fine," David said. "Stay on your section." Luis didn't move. His throat worked. "It happened to my cousin," he said, to no one, to everyone. "Last year, different place, same tone." David's eyes cut. "Not now." Phones multiplied. A silver-haired woman at a four-top leaned just enough toward her companion to be overheard. "Some people don't know their place," she said, and found her water glass fascinating. "Place." The live stream woman echoed brightly to her audience. "He's in ours." Aiden bent, gathered the torn paper pieces without kneeling. His fingers came away with gray streaks. He folded the halves back together along the tier. The candle on 7 trembled as if the air had a pulse. "Can I see your policy?" he asked again. David's smile held. "We don't litigate dinner," he said. "We serve it." The dining room cooled. That was not temperature. It was a tone. The HVAC whispered overhead all the same. In the distance, the bar blender started and died. In one embarrassed burst, Aiden turned the paper in his hands. Clean edge. Meeting broken edge. A seam that would never be seamless again. Luis stepped one pace closer. "I can check the log," he said. "Reservation system has edit history." "Backstation," David said, not looking. Now, the security guard arrived broad-shouldered, black jacket stretched across his back. His name badge hung crooked on the lapel. Rodriguez. A short scar rode the ridge of his thumb when he took the earpiece to listen. "Sir," he said to Aiden, "we need you to move to the bar." Aiden looked at him, not up or down, simply level. "I'm standing," he said. The woman with the phone smiled at her camera like a cheerleader. "Maybe he doesn't understand English," she said. "We're inclusive. We can mime." Aiden's eyes flicked to her. "The way you glance at a fly you won't swat." "I understand," he said. "Then leave," she sang. He didn't. He breathed in, counted an old count, let it out. The sulfur memory left. The lemon returned. The match had not been struck, but the room could smell it. David shifted, a pivot small as a twitch. He was doing math, tables, checks, the risk of spectacle. He turned to the couple, and his smile regenerated. "We're getting you dessert," he said. "On the house? Love that." The guy said, "Maybe a show too." The hostess adjusted the iPad. Her finger hovered over the seat map like a coin over a cup. "There's an opening at 12, she said again. Hope shaped like repetition. Aiden's phone buzzed once in his pocket silent mode. Noglo. He let it. He kept the torn reservation halves pressed together between forefinger and thumb. A cheap miracle that pretended whole. A quiet fell, muffled, as if the room went under snow. A bus moaned outside, low and long. The city pressed its face to the glass and watched. "Sir," David said, softer now, "please don't make this difficult." Aiden looked at him for a long breath. "He won't," he said. He slipped the paper into his pocket. Even torn, he reached behind and took out a slim leather portfolio, cognac-colored, edges burnished by use. He didn't brandish it. He held it like a routine, like a napkin, like nothing. The booth couple's smiles twitched. The ring light clicked brighter, washing faces toward plastic. The candle on 7 shrank and rallied. "Here we go." the woman said to her phone. Judge Judy time. Luis stood where he shouldn't and couldn't help himself. We should check the system, he said. If it dropped him, that's on us. We're not debating process on the floor. David said without turning his head. The guard, Rodriguez, shifted weight. Heel to toe. House rules allow a 5-minute grace, he said, voice quiet. On weekends, his eyes tracked the hostess's screen. On peak nights, David repeated, louder, too. Which policy is printed? Aiden asked. And which is spoken? Sir, David showed his teeth again. Please. Aiden set the portfolio on the podium's flat wood and opened it with both hands. The hinge made a dull, expensive sound. Inside paper, thick and white, edges sharp as winter. A seal at the top caught light. The room leaned without moving. The guy in the booth laughed. A beat late. My man's got props. Smile, the woman said to her camera. This is content. Aiden pulled out one sheet. He didn't wave it. He placed it on the podium as if placing a plate where it belonged. He slid it an inch toward David. He slid it an inch toward Luis. He slid it an inch toward the guard. Everyone could see without stepping. No one reached. Read? Aiden said, not unkindly. David didn't move. Luis did. He stepped in, glanced down, and stopped, as if he'd found a cliff where he expected tile. His lips parted. He wet them once, out loud. The woman suggested, eager, camera-hungry. Luis's voice came low and even, a man reading something he knew would change his shift, and maybe his week. Table 7. He read first, as if warming to it. Le Salon Aiden Cole. 9 p.m. The candle on 7 leaned, then held. The room forgot to blink. The candle on 7 guttered and steadied. The ring light shoveled brightness at faces that didn't need more. Emma's tablet pinged a soft error tone. The dining room held the breath of a room that wanted spectacle, and also wanted plausible deniability. David's smile didn't reach his eyes. Thank you, Luis, he said. We're done here. Luis stepped back, but not far. His tray still rose and fell against his chest like a slow tide. Aiden slid the paper toward the podium's edge again, aligning the torn seam with the wood grain until the halves pretended to be one. 2 questions. Aiden said. Printed policy. System log. We aren't the DMV. David answered. We're dinner. So show me dinner's rules. Emma shifted her weight. The tablet reflected her face. Then the ceiling's grid. Her thumb hovered over the map again. Seat him at 12, she said, trying kindness like a neutral color. The kitchen view is charming. Charming. The woman at the booth echoed into her phone. You hear that? Charming. Maybe he can smell the dishwater. Laughter ferried across glass and china. The oven exhaled heat through the pass. The smell of butter and thyme came in like a bribe. The bartender stirred an old-fashioned in silence, ice clacking like teeth. David looked past Aiden at the room, the donor's table, the banker's birthday, the couple in sequins who would complain if the playlist changed. Money has a sound when it turns its head. He felt it in his molars. Sir, he said to Aiden, this isn't a debate. We have to keep service moving. Service is the debate, Aiden said. The guard's radio hissed once, a clipped voice at the edge of comprehension. He turned it down with 2 fingers and watched David. His posture said, training videos. His eyes said history. Policy posted where? Aiden asked. Back wall. Employee handbook. The website. Internal. David said. Trade secret. Aiden almost smiled. Trade secret dignity. He said, new label. The booth guy leaned forward and palmed the candle like a campfire. Buddy, he said, take the bar stool. It's got your name on it. It does, the woman said, winking at her followers. It's spelled Nobody from a neighboring table. A voice floated like perfume. He looks angry. It said, "Don't they get angry?" The words stuck to the ceiling. Aiden let it stay there. He touched the portfolio's corner with his ring finger. The way you recenter a chess piece that was already placed. Emma swiped. The seat map blinked. A red dot pulsed where 7 lived. "Our system shows release," she said. "I can't override guests already sat." "Logs," Aiden said. "We aren't IT." David said, "We're hospitality." "Hospitality is a system," Aiden said. "Or its mood." David's smile cracked, then sealed. He called over his shoulder without looking. "Boosters, reset 12. Security, help our guest relocate." "Relocate," the woman repeated, delighted by syllables. "He's being relocated." Luis put his tray down on an empty bistro and wiped his palms on his apron. "I'll pull the edit history," he said, and his voice was a winch, lifting something heavy. "No," David said, "backstation." "Now, sir," Luis said. Softer. "If the system dropped him, that's on us." "Not in front of the room," David said. White teeth in a straight line. The guard Rodriguez came nearer, a wedge of fabric and duty, up close. The jacket smelled faintly like starch and cold. He kept his hands visible. "Sir," he told Aiden, "we can do this the easy way." "Which way is that?" Aiden asked. "You walk," Rodriguez said. "We don't touch." Aiden studied the guard's badge, the scratched plastic where a last name had been replaced. "You like rules," he said. "They keep rooms from burning down," Rodriguez said. "Rooms cough smoke before they flame," Aiden said. The booth guy gave a theater sigh. "God," he said, "is this poetry night?" "Poetry is free," the woman said. "Unlike the truffle fries." David touched Emma's elbow. "Light and proprietary. Put 12 in the system," he said. "Mark 7 as occupied at 8:55. "It already is," she said. Her voice looked for ground. "Then note it," he said. "Liability." Aiden looked around the room as if memorizing paint lines. He wasn't counting enemies. He was counting witnesses. His phone buzzed again. A short buzz, and died in his pocket. He didn't check it. He kept his thumb on the portfolio, a hinge between one way and another. "Sir," David said, "don't make me repeat myself." "You won't," Aiden said. He opened the portfolio farther, the leather creasing with a soft, private groan. Paper gleaming aegis like ice, a seal catching light and sending it back colder. He took out a clear sleeve with tabs and slid it forward enough to breathe. "Enough?" the booth guy said. "Prop comedy's over." "Smile," the woman told her audience. "He's auditioning." At the bar, a coupe glass squeaked under a polishing cloth. The sax track on the playlist hit a long-held note that tunneled under everything else. A draft crept under the door and brushed bare ankles at a two-top by the window. The room's senses were doing a better job than its morals. "Emma," David said, louder. "Seat 12. Emma tapped twice. The tablet chirped its tiny compliance. Luis didn't move. He looked at the sleeve the way you look at a letter that might prove your father wrong. "We should read," he said. "We shouldn't," David said. "We should seat." Aiden drew one document from the sleeve with care. The paper made a sound like a secret uncurling. He did not wave it. He placed it edge parallel to the podium's lip and turned it so the header faced the others. "Sir," Rodriguez said. "Gentler now." "Don't." Aiden met his eyes. "Read the top line." David laughed. It was smaller than he intended. "We don't need Rodriguez," Aiden said. Still mild. Top line. The guard didn't reach right away. He was a person who had been taught that touching paper can change your day. He glanced at David. David's face said no. The room's face said yes. His hand moved before his job remembered how to stop it. The seal sat in the margin like a coin pressed under glass. The header ran in clean black serif, heavy enough to feel through your fingertips. Rodriguez leaned in, breath fogging an invisible film, eyes tracking left to right. Emma's finger hung over the tablet on a point of light. Her nail trembled and made a small tapping sound anyway. A cricket against glass. A bus sighed outside and settled into its stop. The candle on 7 leaned toward the papers white as if drawn. David's phone vibrated in his pocket against his thigh. He knew the rhythm. Corporate chat, the thread labeled guest mix, image score, Friday. He'd sat through a call that afternoon where a cheerful regional had shared slides, preferred clientele segments, Instagrammable optics, loyalty tiers with visual impact. He had hated himself for nodding. He had hated his mortgage for nodding for him. Don't, he said now, but it was to the wrong person and about the wrong thing. Rodriguez cleared his throat. His scar blanched along his thumb where he steadied the page's edge. He opened his mouth. Luis shifted a shoe on tile. The sound was small and honest. The live stream count hopped by hundreds in a heartbeat. Comments scrolled like rain. The banker's birthday table clicked a lighter and failed to catch a cigar that wasn't allowed. Aiden lifted his chin the width of a stamp. The motion gave permission without asking. Rodriguez's voice came out low, a man reading something he recognized from dreams he never told. He spoke the header syllable by syllable, because words can be knives or keys, and you don't rush either. MW, he began, and his gaze flicked once to Aiden's face, as if to ask a question and answer it all at once. Hospitality group. The room absorbed it but hadn't processed what it meant. Sound didn't change. Meaning shifted underneath it, like ice cracking in slow motion. David went very still. Then he did what people do when a cliff moves closer. He tried to widen a path someone else could fall through. Vendor letterhead. He said quickly, sales pitch. Not relevant. Aiden didn't look at him. Next line, he told Rodriguez. Luis whispered, almost to himself. Jesus. Emma forgot not to breathe through her mouth. Her lips parted. Her mascara cast small shadows under her eyes, where the ring light overexposed the rest. Board resolution, Rodriguez read, and his throat tightened around the second word like it had found bone. Meridian Chicago acquisition. Silence found a new depth. The candle's flame short, then rose taller, as if it had to see. Aiden didn't touch the paper again. He didn't need to. He left it on the podium where anyone could read, where everyone had to decide whether they believed their eyes or their habits. David's smile didn't come back. He realized his hands were empty and had nowhere honest to be. He put them in his pockets and took them out. The sound his knuckles made brushing lining was louder than it should have been. Emma, he said, but her name came out whisper thin. At the booth, the woman lowered her phone half an inch, without meaning to. Her audience saw the ceiling for a moment, and typed panic that tasted like popcorn. Rodriguez looked from the document to Aiden again, and his face softened into something older than policy. What do you need? He asked, the sentence more than a question. Aiden nodded at the host's stand camera above them, the small black eye pretending to be a point of design. Time stamp, he said, and someone honest to hold the bag. Rodriguez straightened, his jaw set. He tapped his earpiece once. No, hurry, like a man picking up a tool he knew how to use. David took a step forward and hit the podium with his hip. The jolt rattled the pen cup. One rolled and fell to the marble with a bright, stupid ping. Don't touch anything, he said. Aiden's eyes didn't leave the camera. We won't, he said, and the plural landed like an invitation and a warning. The room exhaled. The flame on 7 steadied. Snow pressed its face to the glass and watched without choosing sides. The syllables hung where breath should be. The dining room seemed to slide a half-inch sideways, like a train changing tracks without a warning squeal. The ring light threw a flat glaze over everything it touched. Beyond it, real light breathed from the candles, unreliable and alive. David's mouth moved before his mind caught it. Vendor letterhead, he said again, but the sentence had no home to return to. Aiden didn't react to the spin. He lifted his phone from his pocket with the small care of a person handling something hot. The black glass woke to a dull glow. Notifications stacked like receipts. He set the device on the podium beside the document, turned it so its mic could hear, and tapped a single contact. It rang once, twice. On the third, a crisp voice answered, already in motion. "Carter," she said. "Yes." "Sarah." Aiden said. "Quiet. Initiate protocol. MV0. A beat. Confirmed. Say where you are." "Meridian, Chicago," he said. "Front of house. Time stamp 9:03. "Copy," Sarah said. Keys clicked. "Distant, like small rain. Live incident. Preserve video. Lock edits. Do you need counsel or ops first?" "Ops," he said. "Then counsel." "I'm patching both," she said. "Stand by." David blinked at the word ops like it had teeth. "We're not." Aiden held up a hand a fraction, palm landing on air. "Not a command." "Exactly." A turning of volume. Behind the bar. The bartender set the coupe down gently, afraid the glass could hear. A spoon tapped once against a mixing glass. A metronome finding a pulse. The booth couple's phone caught the ceiling again. Then the edge of the document, then Aiden's profile. The comments flared and hissed. "Is this for the internet?" the woman asked, angling her lens. "Say something juicy." Aiden didn't oblige. He watched the host stand camera's red dots smolder. He noted the make, the model, the tiny scuff at the edge where a ladder had once clipped it. "Luis," he said, "pull a blank bag. Red seals. Date labels." Luis looked at David. David didn't nod or shake his head. The non-answer said more than either. Luis moved anyway, shoulders tight, as he slipped toward the back station. On the line, Sarah's voice came back with a soft chime of added parties. "Ops and legal here," she said. "You're on speaker, Mr. Cole." The room breathed at the title. The silver-haired woman at the foretop lifted her water and missed her mouth by a centimeter. The banker's birthday cake arrived early and hovered awkwardly at the corner of their table like a guest who came without an invitation. Aiden kept his eyes on the room. "We're preserving," he said. "Front camera, seat map, edit logs." "Copy," a second voice said lower, a man who sounded like paperwork and warm offices. "Maintain chain of custody. Hans visible. One custodian at a time." "Security," Sarah said. "Identify yourself." Rodriguez shifted, surprised to be called by a disembodied authority. "Rodriguez," he said. "Front of house. Your custodian 1. Sarah said. "No one else touches the device until you pass it. Confirm time and placement allowed. Then initial the seal. Keep a log. This call is recorded." Rodriguez stood a little taller. "Copy," he said. He looked at the ceiling camera again. Then at the little black recorder tucked under the podium. He saw a future version of himself explaining this moment to someone official, and his spine found alignment. David nearly laughed. It came out thin. "You're not bagging my cameras," he said. "This is a restaurant, not a room without a record." Aiden finished. He didn't look at David. He kept his voice level. "Emma, your tablet logs edits." "Correct." Emma nodded before she knew she had. "Yes. Open audit trail." Aiden said, "Show last 10 touches." I need a manager code, she whispered, and then hated herself for saying it. Aiden looked at David. David's smile had evolved into a baring of teeth with no joy in it. We do not relinquish proprietary, Mr. Carter, Sarah's voice said through the phone, cool as glass. I'm sure you'll collaborate with the new owner. David closed his mouth so hard, his molars clicked. The ring light caught a shine at the base of his throat where sweat had begun to break. He reached for the tablet, then paused, then entered his code with the guilty deliberation of a man opening a drawer he'd promised not to. The audit screen bloomed timestamps in precise gray, each line a history no spin could change. Luis reappeared with a clear evidence bag and a sheet of red seals that smelled faintly of adhesive and vanilla. He set them down like an altar, hands visible. He added a clipboard with a log sheet. The pen clipped to it looked suddenly important. Say the time, Aiden said. Rodriguez glanced at the phone as if it could see him. 2103, he said, military out of habit, and maybe a brother. He pointed to the black recorder under the podium, device removed from host stand. Custodian Rodriguez. He slid the recorder into the bag, the plastic whispering. He pressed the seal closed, then paused. Mr. Cole. Initial. Sarah prompted. Rodriguez took the pen. His handwriting on the seal was careful and larger than he liked. He passed the log to Emma. She signed with a hand that shook enough to curve the M into a small hill. David watched the bagged recorder as if it were a live animal that might bite. This is insane, he said, finding anger's volume at last. You're terrifying my guests. The banker's table pretended not to listen harder. The couple in sequins clutched each other's wrists. The booth guy grinned like a man in a front row seat. The woman adjusted her hair and checked her camera's framing. We're not terrified, she told her audience. We're fascinated. Aiden looked at her ring light, at the plastic halo it cast. Turn that off, he said. She blinked, affronted. I have rights. Same, Aiden said. And the single syllable had corners. She thumbed the light dark. The room felt more like a room. The candle on 7, relieved, stood up straighter. Emma, Aiden said. Read the last entry. Emma swallowed. Table 7 release at 8:55. She said. Edited by Manager Code. Which manager? Sarah asked through the phone. Emma looked at David's hands. She looked at the timestamp. She didn't move. Luis saved her with a small truth. We only have one active manager tonight, he said. So, David's breath came shallow. His face did math he didn't want to show. We extend grace at 2 minutes, he said, grabbing an old line and trying to wrap it around a new hole. On peak nights. Prime to, Aiden said. He tapped the portfolio. Employee manual page with grace policy. We don't keep. Back office, Rodriguez said, surprising himself. Blue binder. Shelf 3. Grace policy is posted. Emma's eyes flicked, grateful and terrified. I can get it, she said. Walk, Aiden said. Don't run. She left, heels tapping a steady count across tile. The quiet she left behind was not absence. It was air holding steady during a procedure you had to perform right. On the phone, the legal voice spoke again. Mr. Cole, I'm emailing a preservation notice to the restaurant's general mailbox and to Mr. Carter's listed address, he said. Confirm receipt when it pings. David's phone buzzed his thigh. He didn't reach for it. He looked instead at the banker's table, at the birthday candle smoldering on a cake no one wanted to cut. He had built a life where optics mattered more than food. It was killing him slowly in public. You don't have to like this, Aiden said, almost kind. You only have to stop making it worse. Emma returned with the binder hugged to her chest like a rescued child. She opened to a flagged page, the paper shiny from too many fingers. Luis read it first, eyes scanning. He nodded once. The smallest victory. Grace period. He read, 5 minutes all nights, 10 on off-peak. A sound moved through the room, like someone set down a heavy suitcase on a carpet. The silver-haired woman's fork clinked against porcelain. The bartender blew air out through his cheeks and polished the same spot on the same glass for the third time. David took the binder. He pressed his thumb hard on the margin, whitening the sheet. He could feel a version of himself falling. He decided to drag someone on the way down. "We make exceptions," he said. "We accommodate emergencies." "What was the emergency?" Aiden asked. The booth guy opened his mouth. Nothing useful arrived. He smiled into nothing. "Grandma." He tried. "Hospice." The woman looked at him, startled by the word he chose. The live stream chat silent now. A black mirror would have eaten them alive. She lifted her chin, the old reflex to perform returning even without an audience. "We were here," she said. "He wasn't." Aiden nodded like he'd heard a weather report. He turned to Rodriguez. "Call in a second custodian," he said. "We're going to need the ceiling cam's internal storage pulled. Write the serial number on the log. Photograph the device plate." Rodriguez moved. Grateful for a list, Luis was already at the base of the host stand with his phone camera, documenting without flourish. The bagged recorder, the seals, the log's handwriting, the binder's page, the candle on 7 small, steady, present. Aiden's phone pinged once. He glanced. The subject line glowed. "Preservation notice. Meridian, Chicago, 21. Ling Wu." He turned the screen so David could see the words. "You've been served," he said, and his voice held no heat, only temperature. The door breathed when someone left. Cold air came in carrying Lake and Rubber and Night. It lifted the candle just enough to make the flame hesitate. Then recover. Emma watched it, held by the tiny drama of a thing that knew how to stand again. David's shoulders sank a half-inch. He looked at Emma, then at Luis, then at Rodriguez. He had run out of room inside his suit. "Sir," he said to Aiden, "can we talk?" "We are," Aiden said. He picked up the document and slid it back into the sleeve. He closed the portfolio with the same care he'd used to open it. Leather sighing like a sleeping animal. He set his phone beside it. Speaker still live. He drew a breath in that made his ribs rise, then let it out. "Finish service," he said. "Seat the room by the book. No exceptions for optics. No penalties for honesty." David nodded like a man accepting a sentence that might save his life later. "Understood," he said. It sounded like a word he hadn't used in months. The booth couple looked smaller suddenly, as if the chairs had grown. The woman reached for her phone, then set it down. The man stared at the candle, as if willing it to go out. It didn't. Aiden looked once at 7. He looked at the river beyond glass, the bridge's underbelly gathering darkness like fabric. He looked at the log and the bag and the binder. He looked at the faces that would leave here and tell this story in kitchens and cars and private, frightened texts. "Sarah," he said toward the phone, "keep the line open." "Open," she said. The flame on 7 leaned, then steadied, as if someone cupped a hand near without touching. The room adjusted to a new gravity and didn't fall. The ceiling camera's red dot blinked like a pulse behind smoked glass. Rodriguez stood on a chair with a step stool under his boots. One hand steady on the host stand. Luis aimed his phone up, framing the tiny metal plate. "Read it," Aiden said. Rodriguez squinted. "Model AX 410, serial 9744B. Luis caught the numbers on video and still, then moved to the log. His pen scratched out the sequence, each digit landing like a nail. Emma slid the blue binder to one side and opened a drawer. She found a zip bag with cable ties and a little roll of tamper tape. The adhesive smelled faintly like bandages. Custodian 2. Sarah's voice said from the phone speaker, "Identify, Emma," she said, and then added, "Host stand." Custodian 2 acknowledges. Sarah replied, "Photograph before and after removal. Film the unbroken seal." Rodriguez loosened the sealing unit's tiny latch with the flat of a butter knife. It clicked, a delicate sound that felt too loud. He lowered the device into his palms like a found bird. Emma filmed the whole descent without commentary, the camera catching his scar, the lines of tension at his mouth. At the booth, the woman had turned off her ring light. Her screen still watched. She couldn't help it. Performance had rewired her hand. A table near the window leaned in too far. A man in a linen jacket whispered, not as soft as he thought. "There it is," he said. "The race card." The ceiling mic heard him. The host stand recorder would have, too. The words put on weight and sat down in the room. David closed his eyes for a beat. It lasted a second too long. He opened them and forced his mouth back into management shape. "Emma," he said, "get me the floor plan. We need to document where people were seated." Aiden said. David looked at him, anger bright but caged. "Yes," he said. Luis laid the diagram on the counter. He circled table 7. He marked the booth with an X. He drew little arrows for sight lines. He cataloged distances like an engineer. He had never done this before. He knew exactly how. "Time," Sarah said. 21:07. Rodriguez answered, holding the camera unit in the clear bag. Device bagged. Seal applied. He folded the tape down along the seam, their initials catching the light like tiny flags. David's phone buzzed again. He ignored it. He felt heat where it touched his leg. He thought of the regional slides, the phrases that were meant to be harmless: preferred look, visual profile, curated vibe. He had nodded because everyone nodded, because careers depend on nodding. He wanted to pull the words out of the air and stomp them like coals. "Mr. Carter," the legal voice said, "check your inbox." David didn't move. "Check your inbox," Sarah repeated. "Now." He took out his phone. The subject line read, "Preservation Notice." The body listed items with bullet points sharp enough to cut. Front camera, host recorder, seat map logs, audit trail. Manager codes used between 2100 and 2110. It had a file path for his own guilt. "We acknowledge," he said in a voice that sounded like it belonged to someone polite who paid taxes. "Copy," Sarah said. "Keep the call open. I'm adding loss prevention." The addition chime was soft, almost cheerful. A new voice arrived with too much daylight in it. "Evening. Folks," the LP man said. "Name's Tilden. Who's hands-on?" "Rodriguez." Rodriguez said. "Good." Tilden said. "Second bag. Ready." Luis held it up. His hand trembled. He steadied it against the podium. The plastic crackled. "Emma," Tilden said, "start printing the audit trail. Hard copies. No PDF." Emma tapped the tablet. The printer under the counter began to hum, then spit out paper. The page edges were warm. They smelled like ozone and dust. David watched his code appear beside timestamps. It landed on 8:55, then 8:56, then 8:57. He remembered each press of his finger like flicks of a lighter in a dry field. "Read the entries," Sarah said. Emma swallowed. "Release table at 8:55, she said. "Manual override. By whom?" Tilden asked. "Manager," she said. "Name," Tilden said. "10 equal parts, patient and bureaucratic." Emma looked at David's hands again. She had worked here long enough to carve her own silence into something she could live with. Tonight, the shape didn't fit. "David Carter," she said. The room did a small collective inhale. The sound was nothing and also everything. The man in linen whispered, "A clumsy rescue. He's doing his job." He told his partner, "The brand." His partner pulled her arm away. She looked at the host stand and at Aiden and decided that, for once, the table conversation had to be done somewhere else. Aiden didn't look at David when he spoke. He kept his gaze on the prints, the seals, the bags. "Mr. Carter," he said, "do you have any other logs that show different times?" David chose the only path he had. "No." "Good," Aiden said softly. It sounded like a blessing and a sentence. Rodriguez finished sealing the device bag and laid it on the counter, palm lingering for a fraction. "Custody remains with me," he said, almost to himself, maybe to a story he'd tell his cousin. Tilden's voice came made of procedure. "Next, the host stand system memory. If it's right protected, leave it. If it's not, we image later." Luis crouched, pulled open a cabinet, and took out a small black box with an SD slot. He held it to the camera. "Model. No label," he said. "Photograph." Sarah said. He did. The picture caught his fingernail. "Two. Bitten short." He logged the lack of label, as if naming absence were a kind of truth. "What else?" Aiden asked. "Witness statements," the legal voice said, "but not tonight. We don't turn guests into a riot." "We're not rioting," the booth woman said brightly, half to the phone that was off, half to a habit. "We're enjoying dessert." "Enjoy it quiet," Rodriguez said. Without heat, the bartender slid a plate across the wood. A candied orange peel winked under the bar light. The smell of char and sugar made a thin line from the kitchen to the lobby. Emma pulled the last of the audit pages and stacked them carefully, aligning corners with nervous precision. She placed the set in a manila folder and wrote the time across the tab. "Should I stamp this?" she asked. "Initial it," Sarah said, "then hand to custodian 1. Emma initialed, then handed the folder to Rodriguez with 2 hands. He took it the same way. David touched his tie as if it were choking him. "We've frightened everyone," he said. Everyone was already frightened. Aiden said, "Just keep service steady." "Steady," David repeated, like he might make the word true if he liked how it tasted. Luis shifted half a step toward Aiden. "Sir," he said, "there's another camera." Aiden looked up at the lobby chandelier, then to the corner near the bar. A tiny black eye blinked behind a metal mesh. "Easy to miss, unless you spent nights closing this place down." "Model?" Tilden asked. Luis stood on a chair and read the plate. "Ax 410, he said. "Serial 9747D. "Document," Sarah said. The banker's birthday table finally cut the cake. The candles wobbled and bent, then straightened to spite gravity. The silver-haired woman put down her fork. She looked toward the host stand, and then away again. Caught between old lessons and a new climate, a dish fell somewhere deep in the kitchen and shattered. The room flinched as one organism. The chef barked a word that didn't carry, then a laugh that did. "Mr. Cole," Tilden said, "we'll have ops meet you at the loading dock in the morning for transfer. For tonight, bag, seal, log, and store in the office safe." "Copy," Aiden said. He ran a finger along the edge of the portfolio, not touching the paper anymore. He looked at Rodriguez. "Office safe, back corridor." Rodriguez said, "Keyed and coded. Manager access." David's lips pressed together. He knew the key code. He had said it. He felt something inside him fold. "Walk with us," Aiden said. "Keep the line live." They moved as a small procession, Rodriguez with the bags, Emma with the binder, Luis with the folder, David with the door codes and the tightness at the corners of his mouth. The crowd parted, pretending not to stare. The woman at the booth lifted her spoon and then put it down without tasting anything. The back corridor ran cool and smelled like citrus cleaner and old steam. The office door was dented exactly once. A long-ago delivery cart signature. David entered the code, and the lock answered with a workable beep. Inside, fluorescent light flattened everything to true. The safe lived in the corner like a small gray animal. David knelt. He opened it. His hands didn't shake. That was something. Rodriguez placed the bagged recorder inside. Then the camera unit. Then the folder. He said each item aloud as if naming it fixed it in time. Emma read the log against his words. Luis watched the door. Close it, Aiden said. David spun the dial. The safe went dumb and silent. He stood. For a moment he looked at Aiden as if a different sentence had occurred to him, one that began with apology and ended with an admission. It died on the way to his mouth. We concluded preservation, Sarah said. Next steps. Statement, then service. Mr. Cole, the city will likely call. They already did, Aiden said. He turned back toward the dining room. The corridor exhaled them into smell and light. The hum returned the jazz track. The HVAC, the soft clatter of porcelain, the heartbeat of a place that wanted to be just a place. At the host stand, Luis slid the floor diagram back under the counter. Emma closed the blue binder and pressed her palm to the cover, as if petitioning it to behave. Rodriguez lifted the step stool away, folded it, and leaned it against the wall with a sound that felt like a period. The booth couple sat very upright now, spoons aligned, eyes not meeting anyone else's. The woman's phone lay face down like an animal pretending to sleep. The candle between them burned without drama. Aiden looked at the room and saw what it would remember. Not the legal words, not the codes, but the arrangement of people when something true became undeniable. He took a breath. He placed his hand near the candle on 7 without touching it, and the flame leaned as if to greet. He felt the heat without the burn. Preserve footage from 8:45 to 9:10, he said. For the record, seat the room by the book, build the file. His voice didn't rise. It carried anyway. Silence listened, then moved out of the way. The printer's warmth faded from the audit pages. Outside, snowfall thickened, turning street light cones into soft pillars. The room wanted to move on. It couldn't. David straightened his tie and found no air in it. He took a breath that didn't go far. We can address this after service, he said, voice pressed and polite. Apologies will be made. Comped meals. A statement is a product, Aiden said. We're doing process. The birthday table finally sang, quiet and fast. Their candle guttered, clung to its wick, then steadied as if embarrassed. Emma set water on a two-top with hands that had learned to stop shaking. Luis walked the room with the intentional blindness of good service, seeing everything and nothing. Mr. Cole, Sarah's voice said from the phone speaker. LP confirms the safe inventory. Legal recommends minimal public interaction at this stage. Aiden's phone buzzed, a low insect in his pocket. He ignored it. The vibration felt off longer, insistent. He let it die. David moved toward the bar, toward activity he could control. Checks. Printer. The choreography of plates. He stopped. We'll craft a narrative, he said, almost to himself. Clarify intent. Emphasize misunderstandings. Misunderstanding. The banker at the cake table echoed, choosing a word like a lifeboat. His wife looked at him as if he had picked the wrong boat. The booth woman found her phone again. The ring light stayed off. She recorded through the ambient glow. We never meant harm, she murmured to her invisible audience, as if intent were a currency you could exchange for consequence. Aiden looked at the flame on 7. It leaned toward the draft, then corrected. A quiet insistence. He turned back to the host stand. Emma, he said, close out the edits. Print a clean seat map. She nodded, grateful for instructions that fit inside the muscle memory of her job. Paper slid out in small size. She stacked the pages like a deck she would deal fairly. Luis arrived with a tray of biscotti and little cups of coffee. From the kitchen, he said, "Chef says to keep hands busy." "Bless him," the bartender said. David's phone buzzed again. He checked it now, reflex beating discretion. The screen glowed with the regional's name, and then a second notification from Corporate Image Score. Beneath that, a text with a preview line he didn't want. "Need a clean version of events." He felt a heat that had nothing to do with the room. He typed back, "Managing, will message." He didn't send it. His thumb hovered. He deleted the words, then typed, "Incident contained, policy followed." He stared at that lie until the letters looked like a language he didn't read. He sent it anyway. At the booth, the guy cleared his throat. "You know," he told Aiden with a smile he thought was winning, "we can all be cool here." "Be cool," the woman echoed, softer, like saying it might make it true. Aiden's phone buzzed again, two short, one long. He checked it this time because something in his chest moved. A single line from a number marked home. "Momadmitit, high BP. Please call." His thumb brushed the glass. He didn't dial. He put the phone face down on the podium, as if a screen could stop grief at the border. "Sir," Rodriguez said, catching the shift in Aiden's posture without knowing the reason, "we can continue this in the office. We stay on the floor." Aiden said. He breathed through the band around his lung. "Finish what we started." David stepped beside Emma. "Email me the logs," he said, finding a voice that was almost steady. "I'll summarize for corporate." Aiden looked at him. "No summaries," he said. "Raw files. Multiple recipients." David's jaw tightened. "We don't air laundry. It already dries on the internet," Aiden said. The booth woman straightened. "Online is a tool," she said, more to herself than anyone. "Context matters." "Context is a luxury abused by power," Luis said softly, surprising himself. He didn't look at anyone when he said it. David glanced at Luis, like the word power was a personal insult. "We are the ones feeding you," he shot back. "Without a brand, there is no service." Luis set down a cup too hard. It clinked. "Without dignity, there is no brand," he said, and his eyes flicked quick toward Aiden. The regional called again. David declined the call, then accepted the following chat invite. By reflex, the thread was already busy. Small avatars, bullet points, a document link labeled "Messaging Incident Meridian." He read phrases he recognized from long afternoons. "Reposition, mitigate, optics, guest perception." The words looked like a net. He wanted to lie down in it and also burn it. "Mr. Carter," Sarah said over the speaker, "you're being monitored by legal counsel. Avoid language that suggests manipulation of facts." He looked at the phone as if it had cuffed him. "We're under Ziga," he said. It came out thinner than he hoped. "We're under observation," Aiden said. "There's a difference." The booth guy tried the old joke again. "Possession." "Man," he said, but even he heard how it sounded now, and let the sentence crawl away to die. "Service," Aiden said, to the room and to the staff, and possibly to himself. "Seat within policy. Comp, where harm was done. Record everything." Emma nodded. "Copy," she said, surprising herself. She moved like she had a new job title. David tried one more pivot. "We'll need confidentiality," he said. "NDAs for staff." "After," Aiden said. "Before is safer," David said. "For whom?" Aiden asked. He didn't wait for the answer. He lifted the portfolio again, not to pull more paper, but to put it away. The leather made that small, civilised sigh. He had no appetite for theater. His phone pulsed, insistent. He lifted it and turned half away from the room. As much privacy as he would allow himself. "Hey," he said. Voice dropped. gentled into a register that had nothing to do with policy. "She's okay," the voice said. "A neighbor. It spiked. They're keeping her overnight. She wanted you to know. Tell her I got the message," he said. He swallowed. "Tell her I'll bring the cinnamon rolls in the morning. She'll hold you to it." He ended the call, let the screen go dark, placed the phone face down again. The candle on 7 swayed. He put his hand near it, not touching. Heat barked at his skin and eased. David took that small softness as a window. "Mr. Cole," he said. Stop," Iden said, and it wasn't unkind. "Don't make this about my patients." David's eyes glossed. He looked at the door to the back corridor, like it contained a different outcome. There was pressure, he said. "We're graded on image." I followed. "A slide deck." Iden said. "I know." "Rent," David said. "Lower." It landed like a confession dressed as math. Aiden nodded once. "We'll talk about housing later," he said. "Right now we talk about harm." The booth woman spoke into her phone again. "Forgetful. We never use the word," she said. "No one has to," Emma said. "Too fast. Too honest." She flushed and looked at her shoes. "It's in the tone." The linen man cleared his throat. "It's just standards," he said. Luis looked at him. A long, tired look. "Standards keep meat at 40 degrees, he said. "Not people." The room made that small shift again. The one without a squeal. Plates arrived. Soothed and steaming. Forks moved in small, approved ways. The music decided to be saxophone again. Life's noise tried to varnish over the scrape. David's phone pinged. The regional, "We need narrative now." Hostile social tone. Draft attached. He opened the draft. He read the proposed first line meridian values. "All guests equally." And the rest of the sentences turned into hiss. He typed, "We will revert," then deleted it. He typed, "This will make it worse." He didn't send it. He stared at the unsent truth as if it could save him by osmosis. "Mr. Carter," Sarah said, hearing keys through the mic. "Do not commit to public language without approval." He put the phone down like it hurt him. For the first time that night, he looked smaller in his suit. The corners of his mouth unclenched. "I tried to keep the room from breaking," he said, almost to himself. "It broke before you walked in." Iden said. "You chose which pieces to sweep." Dead air. Not silence, just the absence of anything to build with. From the kitchen, Chef leaned through the pass and whistled to Luis. "Family meal later," he said. "Something warm." "Copy," Luis said, grateful for a word that felt like repair. Aiden drew the evidence log toward him. He signed at the bottom. Small signature. Clean. He dated the line. "Arshayi. Sherba." He slid the pen to Emma. She signed. She handed it to Rodriguez. He signed like a man who was writing on a title. "Bag goes to the safe." Iden said. "Luis. Escort. Emma. After close. Print staff incident forms. Don't script them. Let people write." David hesitated. "We'll review," he said out of habit. "You'll receive," Iden said. The booth guy finally found a thought he thought would help. "Hey, we're sorry," he said. It landed flat. "A paper airplane without lift. Leave it on the form," Iden said. "Then leave." The woman looked at him as if a script had been stolen from her hand. She stood, chair legs whispering on tile. She set cash under her spoon. It looked like a bribe to an altar. She flinched at the sight of it and pulled it back. "Keep it," Aiden said to Luis, eyes still on the room. "Add it to the fund tonight." "What fund?" David asked, reflexive. "The one that helps kitchen staff pay rent when we close for training," Iden said. "Start a ledger." Emma's mouth opened. She closed it. She opened a notes app and began a ledger, because that is what capable people do when someone says a sentence that might be a promise. Aiden's phone vibrated one more time. He didn't look. He picked up the candle on 7, moved it an inch so the draft couldn't bully it, and set it down. The flame steadied. "Finish service," he said. "Build the file. We'll talk in the morning." He turned toward the windows. Outside, the bridge lights cut the river into black panes. Snow laced the air like steam when a lid lifts. Behind him, plates moved. Voices lowered. The music found a groove nobody had to lie to. The room, chastened, remembered what it was for. David took a step after Aiden and stopped. He had 2 sentences competing in his chest. "I'm sorry, and I was told." He swallowed them both and felt the burn. He turned to Emma, close with gratitude. He said, "No punishing cuts." She nodded. "We'll pay everyone," she said. He nodded back, grateful for someone to borrow steadiness from. He looked at the safe corridor. He didn't move. The candle's flame lifted a fraction and held, as if to say there was heat left that didn't have to score. Snow pressed its face to the glass and watched without comment. The night, which had wanted spectacle, settled for record. Snow slicked the sidewalk into a quiet mirror. By midnight, Meridian's windows threw long rectangles onto the street, and in them the city watched itself rehearse being better. Inside, the dining room thinned to late plates and tired laughter. The air held lemon and heat and the faint metal breath of the safe down the hall. Aiden stood at the host stand with his coat unbuttoned and the portfolio shut. His phone pulsed in a shallow stack. Texts, missed calls, a whirl of red dots. He didn't open them. He scrolled only far enough to see a word that kept repeating. 7. Then, let the screen go dark. Rodriguez locked the front doors. The latch clicked twice, clean as a metronome. Luis collected votives into a buspan, their stubs bleeding wax like cooled tears. Emma counted tips with a pencil behind her ear, lips moving. Not praying, not praying. The back office printer started up on its own rhythm. Sarah had sent forms. Legal had sent templates that didn't read like traps. Paper slid into a tray, warm as bread. The HVAC hummed a steady, merciful note. Aiden finally opened one message. "City Hall wants a call." First thing, another buzz. Investors asking for clarity. A third, PR recommends controlled messaging. 0 interviews. He slipped the phone down again, as if lowering it could lower temperature. David came from the corridor with a clipboard and a look that had lost its marketing vocabulary. His tie was loose. His shirt had collapsed at the collar. "Morning meeting," he said. 9. Regional, loss prevention. HR, the mayor's liaison. Aiden nodded. "We'll be here." PR says keep quiet. David added, low profile, disciplined tone. PR sells apologies. Aiden said, "We're selling change." He kept his voice even. It reached the bar without raising itself. Emma cleared her throat. "Staff statements are ready," she said. "Voluntary. No scripts. Good." Aiden said, "Let them write it raw." The street beyond the glass was a field of dim stars, headlights, snow crystals, the occasional phone glow at the bus stop. Across the table stack, a single votive guttered, coughed, smoke, and died. Luis touched the wick with a match and brought it back. The sulfur bit the air, then faded into sugar from the pastry station. A notification finally outvoiced the room. Aiden checked without wanting to. A headline pulsed. Table 7 climbed into the top bar like a dare. Threads braided and rebraided grainy clips from different angles. Captions that chose sides. Think piece drafts gesturing at themselves. The ring light's early footage was everywhere. So were comments that smelled like mold. He scrolled one beat too long. A comment said, "He pulled the billionaire card." Another said, "He pulled the black card." He put the phone down before the two could shake hands. The kitchen doors swung, releasing a breath of stock and onion. Chef stepped out with a foil pan balanced in his palms. "Family meal," he said. "Gotta eat while getting better." The scent reached the host's stand, lentils and sausage. Thyme, pepper that stung a little bit but not enough to make tears lie. They gathered at the bar, perched or stood, bowls in hands, steam fogging glasses. Aiden took a seat, back straight. David stood, bowl in one hand, spoon untouched. Emma blew across the surface twice, then took careful sips the way some people pray. "Phones off," Chef said. No one argued. They ate. The quiet beat held for a full minute. It filled the room like a kind of oxygen you pay for with attention. Then the side door rattled, a soft knock with cold knuckles. Maria stood there, coat zipped to her throat, hair damp with snow, eyes wider than midnight. She had been off at 10. She hadn't gone home straight. Emma buzzed the door. Maria stepped in fast and shut Winter behind her. Her breathing said urgency and guilt. She clutched something flat and black under her parka like contraband. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "My hands wouldn't stop." She looked at Aiden, then at the floor, then at the bag tucked inside her coat. "I have footage." No one reached for it. She didn't pull it out yet. She talked first, because it mattered that she say it before they saw it. "I run a little channel," she said. "For my mom, she likes to watch where I work. Just the pastry pass, the plates I love, the sound of the room before close." She swallowed. "Tonight I left it rolling in my tote at the rail. No ring light, no face, just sound and heat." Rodriguez glanced at Aiden. Aiden looked at Maria's hands. They twitched around the bag like birds brave enough to land. "You recorded ambient service." Aiden said, "Unintentional." "Unintentional," she echoed. "But real." She exhaled. It caught them. The words, "not loud enough." David took a half step forward, half step sideways. "We have to be careful," he said. "Consent. Expectations. The law likes truth." Rodriguez said. "So do I." "Chain of custody," Aiden said. "Start now." Emma moved without being told. She fetched a fresh evidence bag, red seals, a log sheet, and a Sharpie with a good tip. Luis laid a bar towel out like a sterile field. Chef turned the music down until the sax sounded like it was thinking about a song. "Name." Sarah's voice came from the phone, which Aiden had already woken and set to speaker. "Custodian." "Maria," Maria said softly. "Front of house. Off shift." "Describe the item," Sarah said. Maria slid the tablet from her coat. "A cheap model dressed in stickers and care. Tablet. Black. 10-inch, she said. Cases cracked. Stickers daisy. A spoon. A bear. What stored?" Tilden asked. "Now part of their night-like weather. Internal or card?" "Card," Maria said. "Micro SD. 32 gig. Good." Tilden said. "Do not remove. Bag as is. Photograph. Front and back. Note time, location, and who brings it." Emma did the pictures with her steadier hand. The camera caught the crack, the daisies, Maria's thumbnail with a tiny chip of polish missing. She spoke the time aloud as she shot. 01:13, she said. "Host, stand bar, item presented by Maria Cruz." "Thank you," Sarah said. "Maria, do you understand you are volunteering this? We will keep your name protected as required." Maria's chin set. "Use it," she said. "Say my name if you need to. I don't want to be quiet again." Aiden watched her. He saw a person pulling out a splinter she had lived with too long. He nodded once, slow, as if blessing the wound for finally bleeding. "Bagging," Emma said. She slid the tablet into the clear plastic and pressed the seal down. The tape made a clean kiss. She passed the log. Maria signed. Emma signed. Rodriguez signed. Aiden signed last. Chain of custody, he said. For the record, Custodian 1 Rodriguez. Item from Maria Cruz. Received intact. David stared at the bag as if it contained both salvation and unemployment. He put his bowl down on a cocktail napkin and didn't notice it left a ring. "Play it," Louis said, then apologized for wanting that. "Not here." Tilden said, "Office. Speaker low. Record your faces as you hear it." They filed back down the corridor, the fluorescent light forgiving nothing. The safe sat with its patient. Square trust. Rodriguez placed the bag beside the earlier ones, then lifted the tablet out with care. He set it on the desk, plugged a cable into a port, with the respect you give a heart monitor, and angled the speaker toward the room. Emma shut the door. The office air smelled like paper and cleaner and a little like fear. Rodriguez pressed play. A wash of service sound rose plates. Hiss. A server's behind. Laughter that didn't know what it covered. Then the words swam up through it. A quiet current made of shame. "He doesn't look like 7 material." A male voice said, "Too soft to be for the room." "Linen jacket." "Surely. We work to bring a certain feel." "Certain," a second voice said, female. "The partner, you know, dress code." The first tried, vibe. A clink. A sigh. "Besides," another voice ring light bright, "he'll leave a Yelp poem if we move him. Keep it clean." Then the cut that made the room tilt, a hissed sentence from the booth guy, audible because microphones don't play along. "He's got that South Side look," he said. A beat. A snort. "Watch the coat check." Silence. Then a laugh, small, embarrassed, the kind that wants to step away from itself and can't. Emma looked at the floor and felt heat crawl up her throat. Luis's jaw worked. Chef held the back of a chair like it was breaking. David closed his eyes and saw the slides again. The harmless words with sharp undersides. Aiden didn't speak. The audio ran on orders called "A Cork," the ring light woman's stage whisper, "Play nice." The internet lives forever. The hiss ate itself. The file ended. No one moved. Fluorescent droned. Somewhere outside, a plow dragged steel along asphalt. The sound wrote a thin, cold line across the window. "Thank you," Aiden said at last, to Maria. The words were small and warm. "You were brave." She shook her head. "I was late," she said. "You were brave." "I was quiet." She looked up. "I don't want to be that again." Aiden leaned his palms on the desk and lowered his head a fraction. "Then tonight," he said, "you spoke louder than the whole internet." Maria's mouth trembled, then steadied. She smiled once. Painfully. She breathed like she'd been underwater and had found a shore. Tilden's voice returned, careful and methodical. "We preserve the card," he said. "We do a forensic image in the morning. We log the device. We do not leak. We route through council. We let the city hear it in a room with chairs." "Copy," Rodriguez said. He bagged the tablet again. Sealed. Initialed. The safe took it the way it had taken the others without comment. David sat on the edge of the desk. It groaned. He had 1,000 sentences lined up. None of them had a spine. "We'll lose tables," he said finally. "Investors will scream. Let them." Aiden said. "We'll keep people. You'll bleed," David said. He meant money. He also meant something he didn't want to name. Aiden looked at him, and something in the angle of the look was almost kind. "Light costs," he said. "Darkness charges more." The office clock ticked a clean second. It sounded like time showing you its back. Emma stood. "We have forms to collect," she said, nudging the night back into its rails. "We have plates to polish." They filed out again, into the lemon and the heat and the thin music now playing like a hand on a shoulder. Maria paused at the door. "Sir," she said to Aiden, "thank you for not yelling." I try not to waste oxygen, he said. She laughed once, surprised. A tiny fracture where light got in. She fitted her hat, pulled her zipper up, and stepped into the corridor that smelled like cleaner and small redemption. At the host stand, Luis relit the last stubborn candle. The wick took, then struggled, then found itself outside. The snow had stopped arguing and lay exactly where gravity told it to. Aiden checked the phone once more. City Hall confirmed 9. Investors moved their call to 10. PR begged silence. He typed only 2 words, sent to Sarah. Full transparency. Confirmed. She replied, bring the file, bring the flame. He placed a palm near the candle on 7, not touching, and felt the heat choose him anyway. The room, tired and awake, began to put itself to bed. The night wasn't done, but it was decided. City Hall's rotunda smelled like old paper and winter coats. The marble carried footsteps upward until they sounded older than they were. 9M came with a flat gray light through the atrium glass, the kind that flattens lies and makes coffee taste necessary. Aiden took the stairs instead of the elevator, his breath fogged in thin ghosts. Rodriguez walked beside him with a hard case handcuffed to his wrist, chain small but declaring itself. Emma followed with a banker's box that didn't look heavy until you had to carry it. Tabs peeking, audit trail, floor maps, statements. David trailed, jacket buttoned wrong, eyes quick and unhelpful. Outside the committee room, a clerk with a badge and a pencil tucked in her bun checked names against a printed list. Cole, she said, underlining. Security custodian. Host led. Manager. She looked at David longer. You'll speak or observe? Observe, he said, and winced at the word. The door opened with a wooden sigh. Inside, microphones waited at a long horseshoe, red mute lights like small coals. The mayor's liaison sat at center, a woman in a charcoal suit whose posture said she remembered being a public defender. On her right, corporation counsel. On her left, a commissioner with a patience that looked expensive. Reporters claimed the back row like birds on a wire, phones set to record. No cameras. The city's sign said so, and the sergeant-at-arms looked like he meant it. Aiden felt the room measure him coat cut, shoe shine. The quiet. He set the portfolio on the witness table. Rodriguez set the case beside it with a clink of cuff on handle. Emma put the box down gently, as if it contained something that could bruise. The liaison clicked her mic on. Mr. Cole, she said, thank you for coming on short notice. Short is when it matters, he said. A dry line ran around the room that could have been a smile. The liaison's eyes softened a millimeter. We'll be efficient, she said. We're here for facts, not theater. Facts travel better. Aiden said. He nodded to Rodriguez. Custody. Rodriguez stood, wrist out. The sergeant-at-arms unlocked the cuff. He set the hard case on the table with both palms, like a gift and a warning. MW Hospitality Meridian Chicago. Evidence set 1, he said for the record. Host recorder. Ceiling camera. AX Kate 110. Audi prints. Floor diagrams. Staff statements. He spun the combination and lifted the lid. Red seals winked under fluorescent light. Chain of custody log, Emma added, sliding the clipboard. The paper had the weight of signatures and coffee stains. Corporation counsel adjusted his glasses. Will admit by stipulation, he said. Custody appears intact. Will verify hashes on digital when provided. Aiden lifted a small USB drive from a foam cutout, its metal case engraved. MW hash. He placed it on the table. Forensic image checksum. SHA. 256, he said. Matches to camera dump and recorder. We brought the reader. Proceed. the liaison said. Her voice carried like a level line. IT rolled a cart in a municipal laptop older than anyone loved, an adapter bristling with options, and a little black reader that looked like a deck of cards. Rodriguez connected the drive and the reader with practiced movement. The screen woke into a forest of files. He typed the path from memory and enlarged a set of numbers that didn't pretend to mean anything to feelings. Confirm string. Counsel said quietly. Aiden read it off without looking at notes. Rodriguez matched it with his finger. Emma watched the red light on the reader pulse. Stamped. The liaison said, "Ben moving, play the relevant segment." The audio came first, host, stand room tone. Silverware, the low tide of a Friday night. The room leaned forward without meaning to. Then the words surfaced. Not loud, perfectly clear. He doesn't look like Seven material. Certain feel. Southside look. Watch the coat check. A reporter's pen stopped mid-scratch. The commissioner's mouth moved once. A small no. The liaison kept her face still until the hiss of the room returned and died. "We'll hear the full file in closed session," she said. "For this record, that will do." David stared at the tabletop. His throat worked. He looked like a man explaining to himself why he hadn't said anything in time. "Mr. Cole," the liaison said, softer. "Why come here instead of the morning shows?" He lifted a shoulder. "Cameras perform," he said. "Rooms like this, remember." Counsel cleared his throat. "There's also liability," he said. "We appreciate the preservation notice. Few do it right." Aiden nodded at Rodriguez and Emma. "They did it right," he said. The liaison shifted to process. "Policy grace period," she asked. Emma opened the blue binder. Page flagged. She read without drama. 5 minutes all nights. 10 off-peak. Applied. "Not last night," she said. "By whom?" David's mouth opened. Habit and shame collided. "By me," he said. And the sentence hung there, wearing the truth like a thin coat. "Pressure?" the commissioner asked. Tone careful. David let out a breath that had been held for years. "Optics," he said. "We learned to curate a look. Slides. Tears. A vocabulary you can say at staff meetings without getting sued. It becomes your hands." "What did it make them do?" the liaison asked. "Turn people into risk," he said. Silence, so the room could hear itself. The liaison looked to Aiden. "What do you want from this body?" "Process," he said. "Annual bias training tied to licenses. Secret shoppers who don't look like postcards. A complaint line that bypasses managers. Audits. Penalties with teeth." He didn't raise his voice. He kept placing each word in the space until it couldn't be moved. Counsel waited. "Enforceable," he said. "We'd need metrics. Start with grace period, compliance," Aiden said. "Then seating variance by visible demographics. Pull a week of seat maps. Cross-check with reservation names. TMAS stamps. Checks. It's math." The commissioner nodded. "You've thought this through." "I've lived it," he said. The liaison looked at Rodriguez. "Officer," she said, half joke, half old habit from court. "You comfortable being a whistle and a custodian?" Rodriguez squared. "Comfortable isn't the word," he said, "but my cousin will read this transcript. That matters." A thin smile worked around the dais. Without being disloyal to the seriousness, the liaison clicked her pen. A small percussion. "We will draft," she said. "Counsel will return with enforceables." A hand went up in the press row. The sergeant shook his head. The liaison nodded once anyway. A reporter stood. "Is this a one-off?" she asked. "Or a pattern?" Aiden didn't look at David. "Patterns are just one-offs. With time added," he said. The liaison nodded. "And time begins now." She looked down the horseshoe. "Motion to request a voluntary industry accord within 30 days. she said. Failure triggers ordnance. A murmur. Votes indicated by raised hands carried. She turned back. Mr. Cole, she said, we'll need you on the working group. Add a staffer, he said, nodding to Emma, and a floor lead, nodding to Luisa's absent place. Otherwise you'll draft for managers and miss the room. We'll include service, she said. It sounded like a promise she intended to keep. They moved to statements brief, controlled. Emma spoke 3 sentences about policy and people, voice steady like she'd practiced on empty rooms. Rodriguez said 2 about paperwork being a kind of courage. David said 1 about being sorry, and 2 about changing. He left the words on the table and didn't try to arrange them into a shield. The liaison closed her folder. Thank you, she said. This committee will recess. Chairs scraped. Polite. Reporters slipped out to call in copy. The sergeant unplugged microphones with a neat sequence, red coals going out. Counsel leaned toward Aiden as the room thinned. For what it's worth, he said, you did the procedural right. It matters later. Later is why we're here. Aiden said. The hallway smelled like coffee someone had let burn. A municipal clock ticked heavy seconds. Rodriguez relocked the case to his wrist, metal on bone. Emma hugged the box into her ribs like breath. In the stairwell, David stopped on a landing. The light there made half of his face look younger and the other half tired. I wouldn't have come, he said, almost to the wall. Aiden glanced back. I would have settled, David said. Comped, drafted, espun. He swallowed. I built a life on not making rooms like that happen. And now, Aiden said, I want to work for the person who made it happen, he said, and met his own cowardice like a mirror. If you don't fire me first, a quiet stretched, not empty, boots on tile, echoing down from the next floor. Someone laughed far away, unoffended by any of this. Earn it, Aiden said. Start by calling your staff this afternoon and owning your part in their hearing. David nodded with emotion that looked like something had been cut out of him, and, in the empty space, a useful absence remained. Yes, he said, and it sounded like a word he meant. Outside, winter had sharpened itself. Breath showed. Sunlight didn't. Aiden's phone buzzed with a new wave of requests. National morning shows, a podcast with a name like Civic Fire, a panel about hospitality trends. He typed one message to Sarah. Send the notice to the association. Invite them or we write it without them. On it, she replied. Liaison wants you at 3 for draft language. They crossed the plaza, pigeons scattered, then resettled, as if politics didn't apply. A street vendor fanned smoke over a grill. The wind carried cumin and char. Rodriguez's cuff clinked a small rhythm that made people look up without knowing why. At the curb, a city SUV idled for the liaison. She rolled down the passenger window. We'll need seat map samples from a few other venues, she said. If you have friends, I have competitors. Aiden said. They'll be helpful when they realize it. Carrot then stick, she said. Flame then light, he said. She tapped the window frame twice. A habit, and the SUV moved off. Steam rose from the exhaust and stripped itself thin in the wind. David's phone chimed. The regional again. A tone like sugar in a bad mood. He didn't answer. He watched the SUV turn the corner instead. I can get the binders updated tonight, he said, as if routine could pray. Do it, Aiden said, and remove the slide about visual profile. Put in grace. Oh, grace isn't a metric, David said. It becomes one, Aiden said. They reached the car. Rodriguez slid the hard case in like a sleeping child. Emma climbed in with the box on her knees. Aiden stood a breath longer, the cold needling his knuckles. Across the street, a candle in a courthouse window. Some clerk's desk votive burned weakly against noon. He lifted a hand toward it without touching air. Heat found him anyway. He got in. The door chunked shut. A plain sound. The city moved around them, unimpressed and, for once, listening. By 3 o'clock, the sky had the color of unpolished steel. Meridian's dining room sat prepped and quiet. Napkins folded into boats that wanted water. The host's stand glowed with afternoon sun thinned through cloud. The heat in the room came from the espresso machine and a single tea light Emma had lit out of habit. A dot of stubborn orange. Aidan took the investor's call in the office. The speakerphone flattened voices into money. "We support reform," the chair said, vowels clean as crystal. "But markets punish disruption. Keep optics contained. Optics are the problem," Aidan said. He kept his voice low. "Even, we're doing the real thing on the record." A second investor slid in. Voice long with suspicion. "This ordinance talk spooks landlords. You lose 3 points in comp overnight, then we earn 6 back." Aidan said, "Service beats spin." A hum of muted disapproval. Then a phrase Aidan expected and hated, "Guard the brand by making it true," he said. The line crackled with people in winter coats stepping into black cars. The chair sighed. "We'll reassess post-cycle," she said. "Tread lightly." The call died. The office returned to lemon and paper and a stain on the carpet that looked like a map of a place that got rain. Aidan stared at the phone for a beat. A text popped through the silence. "Draft language at 4. Liaison waiting." Another followed. "Nasty as a metal taste. Influencer clip trending." He opened it. The woman from the booth, ring light off. Whitish daylight on, had posted a cut of the night with captions like teeth. No audit trail. No slur. Just his face. The portfolio. And a text overlay. "Billionaire bullies staff. Demands special table." The music was a thin piano that made innocence sound purchasable. The comments moved like a nicotine cough. He flexed. He staged it. He pulled strings. A handful defended him. The handful got buried. Emma appeared at the door with a stack of rolled silverware under her arm, then stopped when she saw the look on his face. "Bad?" she asked. "Predictably," he said. Her phone buzzed in her apron. She checked, frowned. "The association just posted guidance," she said. "A statement template. It says emphasize misunderstanding and polite tone. It says ban personal recordings on premises." She looked at him. "It says to confiscate devices if necessary. Burn it," he said. She smirked before she realized he might mean it. He didn't correct her. In the lobby, Rodriguez unfolded a folding table and placed a plastic tray on it. "Office hours," he said. "City liaison wants a place for statement drop-offs." He set out clipboards, pens tied with twine, a sign-in sheet. The tray smelled faintly of bleach and cut lemons. Luis taped a sheet of printer paper to the stand. "Statements. No scripts. Your words." He underlined "your" like it meant a wage. David came from the back with 2 envelopes. His hair misbehaved. His suit apologized for him. "Regional sent a memo," he said. "They want uniform messaging." He handed Aidan the paper. The first sentence wore cologne. "Meridian regrets any confusion in values. Each guest experience equally." It was a sentence engineered to die in court. "New plan," Aidan said. "We publish the binder page, the audit trail, and the camera serials. We publish the preservation notice. We say we don't confiscate devices. We collect the truth." David flinched like someone had cracked a window in a snowstorm. "Publish internal documents," he said. "Investors will read." Aidan said, "These are not secrets. These are the spine." The front door rattled. Rodriguez looked over. A courier stood on the stoop. breath, a white rope, a tote hung off his shoulder. He slid a large manila through the gap. When the lock buzzed, "For Mr. Cole," he said into the cold and left. Rodriguez brought it to the desk. The envelope was thick, heavy, no return. Inside, printed screenshots, grainy but legible DM, forum posts, a thread with Maria's name in it, circled, a home address, a caption. She faked the audio. The letters shrieked without sound. Emma's face went ice than heat. "They found her," she asked. "They think they did." Aidan said. He set the papers flat, edge parallel, like a surgeon's instruments he wasn't ready to use. He lifted his phone to camera. "Photograph," he said. "Then bag." Rodriguez reached for a fresh evidence pouch. "Harassment file," he said. He wrote the time, the source, the anonym. He sealed the flap with a decisiveness that felt like an oath. "Call her," Aidan said. Maria answered on the second ring. The wind rode around her words. "I saw it," she said. "They sent it to my mother's Facebook." Her laugh ran dry. "She thinks it's a flyer for a church bake sale and keeps asking how to RSVP. We'll file a report," Aidan said. "We'll put you in a car. You stay with a friend. I'll stay at work." She said, "If I go home, they win. We're the ones deciding how winning works." He said, "Listen to me." He softened. "Send me your address. We'll pick up your mother." Maria took a breath that held on to hope. "She'll cry," she said. "She cries when the coffee machine jams." "Good," Aidan said. "Crying means she's still this side of the fight." He ended the call, turned to Rodriguez. "CPD report, document number, officer name." Rodriguez nodded. "I know a desk sergeant who isn't a tourist," he said. He picked up the phone. His voice on that call was all spine and calm. Luis reached for the suspicious envelope like it could bite. "Who sent it?" he asked. "The internet," Aidan said. "Which is no one and everyone." David unfolded his own memo like a white flag and then refolded it as if that could compress its harm. "We need PR cover," he said. "A friendly outlet. We need witnesses." Aidan said. He nodded toward the folding table. "Which one of us is going to sit there so staff don't feel like they're entering a trap?" "I will," Emma said, already moving. By 4:15, the liaison walked in with a stack of draft pages and the smell of outside snow. "We put teeth into it," she said. "Training, audits, a whistle hotline, fines stacked on violations, license suspension for repeat offenders." Aidan's phone vibrated again. He glanced influencer live stream now and let it pass. "Publish the draft," he said. "Then invite every GM and bartender to tear it up and make it better. We'll get called anti-business." The liaison said, lips making a shape that had heard the argument too many times. "Then call back with receipts," he said. He slid the audit trail across the wood. "Grace isn't anti-business. It's what keeps rooms from burning down." She spread the draft across the host stand, lined up her pen with the margin, and went to work with a municipal ferocity that had probably saved more people than any parade. Rodriguez returned from the back with an incident number written in a hand that looked like a field report. "Cruise harassment documented," he said. "Desk, Sergeant Velez. Case ID 41783. He'll assign a detective." Emma exhaled. Her shoulders fell a centimeter. "I'll put Maria's mother on the manifest," she said. "Hotel across the street owes us 3 favors." David read a message he couldn't ignore. His face changed the way weather does over the lake. "The regional leaked a draft," he said. "It blames rogue staff for last night. It promises to retrain lower-level roles. It says, leadership will assess guest mix protocols in prison. Guest mix," Luis said, and the phrase tasted rotten. They wrote that in ink. Aiden took the phone without asking. Read the sentences. And felt something that wasn't anger so much as inevitability. We cut them off, he said. We say out loud that leadership wrote the slides. We say out loud that we're burning them. David looked like a man about to jump into cold water because there was a person out there who couldn't get to shore. We name it, he said, and we put my name on it first. Do you mean that? Emma asked. Yes, he said. Aiden studied him for 2 seconds that stretched. Then you speak tonight, he said. Staff first, then the room. Luis scrolled the influencers live to check the battlefield. She's doing a Q&A, he said. She's crying. She says she's being cancelled for being pretty, and the liaison didn't look up from the ordinance draft. We don't do culture war in the lobby, she said. We feed people and call the law. The front door rattled again. Harder. A small clutch of cameras found a way around the sign, and cases slid in like suitcases at a station. The sergeant-at-arms from City Hall, now moonlighting as a decent human, appeared like a wall and turned them away with a firm hand and zero apology. Town Hall in 20. Aiden said, staff only, no phones, chairs in a circle, no head of table. Emma's quiet smile was quick and tired. A circle is hard in a rectangle, she said, and moved furniture until it made a shape that was honest. They filled the seats, dishwashers with red hands, servers in black, with pens still in their aprons, line cooks smelling like onions and heat. Chef stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes bright. Maria slipped in last, cap low, shoulders squared. Her mother, tiny and wrapped in a borrowed coat, sat beside her with a hand in hers, and looked at the room like it was church and contrition. Aiden stood until the scraping of chairs stopped. He didn't take the head. He didn't want one. He looked at faces that had looked at him all night and waited for the elevator pitch or the threat or the nice words that make the hours go faster. We're going to publish what we did today, he said. The logs, the serials, the bag numbers, the grace policy, the ordinance language. We're going to open our doors to inspectors who don't look like our postcard. We're going to pay you during training. We're going to comp last night's harm and put notes in the book so we don't forget who got cut and who made them bleed. He let kids sit. He let it be friendly. Some of you will be doxxed, he said. Some of you already have been. Tonight we keep you in hotels. Tomorrow we file reports. We keep custody of what matters. We don't leak. We don't gloat. He looked at Maria. We don't go quiet. David's voice came from a place that had nothing to do with slides. I did this, he said. Not the whole of it. Enough. I'll sit with any of you who want to tell me how it felt. I'll write down exactly what you say. He won't correct your grammar. A laugh escaped someone. Small and kind. Chef grunted approval. Emma passed around a stack of blank forms. Pens scratched. The sound was soft and relentless. A phone vibrated in Aiden's pocket. He checked it because his body had learned the shape of emergencies. A text from an unknown. We know where your mother is. Another. Stay out of our spaces. The letters sat like stones. He took a slow breath that moved his ribs. He held the screen up for the room to see with no drama. Rodriguez took it with the same care he'd used with the camera. Separate file, he said. Different bag. Aiden turned back to the circle. They want fear, he said. They can have our procedure instead. He set a tea light on the floor in the middle, a small, inappropriate ritual that turned out to be exactly right. The flame bent toward a draft, then stood back up. A circle of tired people watched a little fire do something brave and ordinary. Then they picked up their pens and did the same. By dusk, the river turned slate, and the bridge lights blinked on like a hospital monitor. Meridian filled in without noise, prep chatter, glassware tune, a new laminated card at the host stand. Grace, 5 minutes 10, off-peak. The tea light Emma always lit found its circle on the wood, a patient ember in a room pretending to be ordinary. Aidan stood in the office with 2 windows open on the laptop. On the left, the city's ordinance draft. On the right, a blank statement box on the restaurant's site. Behind him, the safe, square and quiet. In front of him, a decisión, he typed, hands steady. We failed last night. We preserved what we did. Here it is. He attached the audit trail PDF, the page from the binder with the grace policy, photographs of the sealed bags. AX 410 serials visible, red seals with initials, the chain of custody log with timestamps in ink. He blurred signatures except custodian. He typed a line that would either be suicide or oxygen. Leadership trained for optics. Staff paid the bill. We're burning the slides. Rodriguez read over his shoulder, arms folded. You're going to get sued for that sentence. He said, good. Aidan said, then we get a room like this morning but with a judge. He hit publish. The page went live with a small chime that sounded like a coin on glass. In the 30 seconds before the world noticed, the office felt warmer. Emma stepped in with a stack of menus, saw his face, and set them down gently, like you set down a sleeping child. Done, she asked. Done, he said. It hit fast. The restaurant's inbox inhaled. The site counter spun like a slot machine, then locked and rolled again. Comments hit every lateral surface, some with gratitude, some with knives. A few attached their own receipts, seat maps from last year, a string of reservation screenshots where a pattern drew itself with elegant cruelty. He saved those into a new folder. He named it Proofs Public. He made a second called Threats and slid 3 messages into it without reading the last word of each. David arrived with a paper bag of pastries and a face like it had been talking since noon. He set the bag down, then leaned on the desk because the room was moving and the desk was a boat. The regional found your post. He said, they want my resignation to steady the narrative. They've CC'd legal and 2 investors, and something called brand architecture. What did you say? Aidan asked. I told them my resignation would be for cause mine and you could decide that. Not a slide. David said. Then I told them to send a courier for the training deck because I'm lighting it. Aidan blinked once. Slow. That's not how you were built, he said. I got rebuilt. David said. He opened the bag, pulled out a cinnamon roll, and set it near Aidan's elbow, like a talisman. Before he could explain the ritual, his mother's request, the laptop chimed a different tone. A Zoom link arrived from the city liaison, flagged urgent. Association Working Group Open Call. The time said now. The participants list scrolled owners, GMs, a chef, who wore his tattoo, like a resume. The regional, whose emails always smelled like ozone, the influencer's PR firm was here, too. Silent and shaped like money. They joined, windows tessellated. The liaison sat in front of a municipal bookcase, hair pinned with the same pencil. We're posting draft enforcement language, she said. We want industry in the room. Don't waste my breath. The regional unmuted like a man stepping into a shallow pool and discovering depth. We can't enforce ideology, he said. We need flexibility. Certain rooms have a visual standard. Call it a dress code, the chef said, and rolled his eyes hard enough to scuff his desktop. For plates? The PR representative slid in with a voice like tile. We advise against codifying bias in ordinance, she said. Vague terms invite litigation. Bias isn't vague, Emma said from off-camera. Before she remembered rooms like this weren't supposed to hear her. It's a tone you can't unhear. A hand that moves without thinking because the thinking was done on a slide. Silence. Windows blinked. Aiden unmuted. We're measuring grace, compliance, and seat variance. He said, math, not vibes. The liaison clicked a box on her end. The draft language filled a share screen. Training tied to license renewal. She read, randomized seating audits. Protected complaint pipeline. Finis escalate. Suspension at 3 strikes. Regional smiled the way men smile when they think we've all agreed we're on the same team. We run visual harmony programs citywide. He said, our guests expect a curated look. High spenders are sensitive to environment, and I'm sensitive to lawsuits. The liaison said, is your program public? A proprietary philosophy, he said. It's tasteful. Drop it in the chat, she said. Bored and sharp. We'll see about taste. He hesitated half a second too long. The chat bloomed anyway. A PDF titled Brand Visual Harmony Internal. Emma's breath left her like someone had pressed on her ribs. On the share, slide 2 displayed a grid. Gatekeepers, gateways, outliers. Beneath outliers, someone had written, in language that smiled, to show it meant no harm. Streetwear. Visible status if non-brand. Large families, non-English primary. Visible working-class cues. A footnote. Seat outliers near service doors to maintain aspirational feel. Someone exhaled a curse. The chef laughed once, a sound that could cut glass. The liaison closed her eyes and opened them calm. We'll be subpoenaing your slides anyway, she said. Thank you for your efficiency. Regional found offense. It grew like mold. We serve the city, he said. We provide livelihoods. You curate a mirror, Aiden said. You get mad when it reflects. The PR rep recovered. We've advised our client to emphasize misunderstandings and tone. Personal live streams create distortions. Personal recordings kept your client honest. The liaison said, we're done letting you call truth a distortion. The influencer's box lit. She was in good light, hair newly contrite. I'm being threatened, she said, tears near but careful. Our families get dragged when you shove your politics into dinner. Maria's tiny window blinked open. She'd logged in from the bar, mother at her side in a coat that looked like a borrowed storm. Maria's voice came small and level. My mother got mailed our address, she said. Not for politics. For me telling the truth about a Friday night. Let's bring it back to policy, the liaison said gently, steering the ship between 2 fires. The chef leaned into camera until his tattoo made a cameo. Policy. We stop pretending we don't see what we see, he said. We stop moving people like furniture. The chat filled again. A GM from the west side posted anonymized seat maps with colored dots. Red for tables near service doors. Blue for white parties. Yellow for black. You didn't need math to see a corner of the room got very red. Very often, a reporter somehow on the call grabbed a screenshot before the liaison could say close session. Enough, she said. We'll take it private. They did. Off the call, the office felt both larger and too small. Aiden's phone buzzed hard enough to skate on the desk. Unknown number. He answered without thought. A voice he didn't know and wouldn't remember later spoke fast through muffled fabric. Tell your mother to move rooms, it said. You think the internet can't read hospital boards. The line went dead. He looked at David. He looked at the cinnamon roll. He looked at the door like it could outrun whatever had just tried to enter. Rodriguez, he said. I heard, Rodriguez said, already dialing. We'll relocate her under a guest alias and flag the chart. HIPAA will do the rest. Chain of custody for the call log, Aiden said. His voice didn't crack. He wished it would. It would have felt human. David moved first. "He'll drive," he said. "You stay. If you leave the room now, they win in 2 places." Aiden nodded once, 2 times, like a man trying to convince his own blood of a plan. He called the nurse's station with a calm that upset him. He explained the situation with nouns that did not hide. He asked for a locked floor. He listened to a nurse with a voice like a clean sheet say yes. The sacrifice landed without a sound. He wasn't going to the hospital. He was going to hand his mother's safety to other hands, while he stood in a building where a candle mattered to people who weren't her. He put his palm near the tea light at the host stand. It bent toward him and stayed. The front door rattled at 6 as the first reservation arrived, an old couple in wool coats, a paper bag of medicine visible in the woman's purse. Emma took their names like treasure. She seated them at a window, where the bridge looked kinder. She poured water and said, "Welcome," like it was first aid. Aiden opened the site again. Email poured in with 2 spigots, gratitude and bile. He folded the gratitude into a folder called Keep. He bagged the bile. Rodriguez logged a new case ID, wrote it on a post-it, then transferred it to the log with priestly neatness. At 7, a courier in a corporate windbreaker arrived with a thick envelope and a bad posture. David met him on the stoop. He signed for the envelope, stared at the return address regional office, and walked it to the bar. He opened it in front of everyone who mattered. Inside, 20 bound copies of Brand Visual Harmony and a cover letter that had been proofread by 4 people. It was so clean. There was also a flash drive with a sticky note. Video assets. David raised the packet like an offering to a flame. "We won't need these," he said. Chef brought a metal bin. Luis poured a little water at the bottom to keep the fire honest. Mastrucamech. The sulfur hit. The paper took. The cover letter blackened first like a polite person finally telling the truth. The training deck flickered and curled. Charts lifting. The word outliers twisting as it lost its oxygen. The influencer posted a live from the sidewalk as the smoke thinned into cold. "They're burning evidence," she said to her followers. Aiden stepped outside, breath-making queries in the air. He looked into the phone's eye and chose not to speak. He held up a sealed evidence bag. Instead, the host recorder, red seal intact, initialed AX410 clear on the plate. He rotated it slowly. 1 revolution. The camera took it all. He pointed at the burning slides. Then, at the sealed bag, paper went to ash. Evidence did not. The distinction landed like a good verdict. Inside, the old couple ate soup. The woman laughed at a joke chef made about time. A busser retrieved a spoon without pretense. The little tea light watched and didn't ask for credit. At 8, the city posted the ordinance draft for public comment. The language had gained muscle since noon. License renewal requires sat beside audits, and whistle protection and grace like words that had decided to move furniture. Investors called again. Aiden didn't answer. He sent a 1-line email instead. "We'll recover slower and keep longer. Choose." The chair replied 5 minutes later with a sentence that meant she had seen a map others hadn't. "We'll stay." At 9, a ping. PR had posted their own statement. It read, like glue. Below it, the association's guidance, already mocked by 1,000 service workers who had time to meme in stolen minutes. Maria's mother, in a borrowed room across the street, sent a photo of a TV showing the City Hall rotunda and texted, "Is that your boss? He looks tired. Tell him to sit down." At 9:30, the kitchen sent out a plate on the house to a table that had waited too long during the slow burn. Luis set it down with an apology that felt like a promise. The guest nodded without performance. Something that had always been bent shifted toward true. By 10, the room was more quiet than empty. The tea light thinned. Aiden pinched it out and felt the heat on his fingertips like a truth that didn't want to cool. He stood a while at the window, watching the bridge hold both sides together without asking. Out in the cold, the influencer filmed her sign-off. Her comments section ate itself. Somewhere a media strategist wrote a memo about message drift. Somewhere a landlord called a regional and asked about optics. Somewhere a kid who had never seen a manager confess read a thread and wondered if rooms like this could exist where she lives. David returned from the hospital with wind on his coat and the smell of sanitizer. He nodded once, twice, hands at his sides like he'd forgotten what they were for. She's on a locked floor, he said, under another name. The nurse has a cousin on our line. Aiden let himself sit on the edge of the desk for the first time all day. The cinnamon roll waited, absurd and exacting. He broke off a piece and tasted cinnamon that burned his tongue a little. He closed his eyes on purpose. He swallowed. Tomorrow, he said, we do this again. Tomorrow, Emma echoed, and logged the last entries of the night in a hand that had stopped shaking. Rodriguez filed the threats and the thanks with the same neat pen. Chef switched off the pass light. Luis stacked glasses, mouth down like small domes. The night held its breath for a beat, then let it go. The bridge lights kept their patient pulse, and somewhere between the safe and the window, a room's spine filled in with something that wasn't fear. Dawn came thin and blue. The kind of light that shows the floor needs mopping. The river wore a skin of ice near the banks. Street salt, crusting the curb like old sugar. Inside Meridian, the prep lights hummed awake. The safe sat in its corner, square and patient. The tea lights waited in their sleeve like a row of held breaths. Aiden unlocked the front door. A mechanic's gesture turn, press. Listen for the honest click. He hung his coat on the host's stand hook. His phone blinked a stack of notifications he didn't yet allow into the room. He wiped the wood with his sleeve anyway. Habit. Respect. David arrived with 2 coffees and a face that had slept in the wrong place and decided not to complain. She's stable, he said without clearing his throat. Your mom. New room. Alias. The nurse wrote, no calls on the chart like a spell. Aiden nodded, eyes doing that thing when they try not to be a billboard. I'll bring the rolls after shift, he said. She'll make me split one with housekeeping. Housekeeping will win, David said, and set the coffee near the portfolio, like an offering to a secular altar. Emma came in with a box of printed signs. She slid one under the host stand glass. Grace, enforced ask us what it means. Another went to the service door, another above the expo printer. If we're going to live by it, she said, let the room dare us. Rodriguez checked the seal numbers on the log one more time, like touching a bruise to see if it still hurt. He added the latest case ID in neat block caps. He taped a smaller sign below Grace. 0 confiscations. 0 scripts. Document everything. Maria and her mother came in together, the older woman in a scarf that might once have been a curtain. She looked around like she'd been invited backstage to the thing that had upset her TV. We brought empanadas, Maria said, embarrassed of the bag and proud of the smell. If the kitchen allows, Chef took the bag with both hands. He opened it, breathed the steam, and made a sound at the back of his throat. Permission granted, he said. He didn't smile. His mouth softened anyway. By 9, the city liaison's email landed. Final draft committee vote at noon. The PDF bristled. Training as license. Grace as metric. Random seat map audits. Protected hotline with a clock attached. Fines that grew teeth. Suspension like winter for repeat offenders. At the end, implementation committee seated. Names: Aiden, Emma, a bartender from the South Side, a dishwasher from Uptown, a union rep with a voice like gravel, a chef who swore creatively, Aiden read to the punctuation. He exhaled. The room exhaled with him. Wood and air and people moving a notch closer to their own bones. Etten Sharp, a man in a suit, the color of poured cement, walked in with a briefcase. He didn't sit down. He held a smile the way people hold umbrellas they don't plan to share. His card said, Regional Director, Brand Architecture. The red scarf around his neck was both festive and a little like a flag. I scheduled a walkthrough, he said, as if the room might apologize for being itself. You scheduled a conversation, Aiden said. Walkthroughs are for inspectors. The regional's eyes flicked to the grace sign like it had personally insulted him. We prefer discipline to grace, he said. Most bully do, Emma said, then bit the inside of her cheek in case she'd used 8 of her 9 lives. The regional set a folder on the stand. Inside, a new training deck, shiny as a lie. He pushed it forward with one finger. Revised visual harmony, he said, adjusted for recent sensitivities. Aiden didn't touch it. We run dignity first, he said. Recent necessities. Investors expect brand continuity, the man said, smile drying. Our guests read our post, Emma said. They made reservations anyway. The regional's smile cracked. We control language, he said. No more outliers, we call them edge guests. No more gatekeepers, we say ambassadors. Same program, better optics. Maria's mother stepped forward like she was walking into her own living room. Words don't wash plates, she said, voice mild, accent warm as a stove. My daughter comes home smelling like onion and people. Keep her safe or go away. The regional looked at her like people look at weather when it arrives uninvited. He adjusted his scarf. He turned to Aiden. If you continue to publish internal documents, he said, we'll reconsider our investment. We'll recommend a change in local leadership. You're welcome to recommend, Aiden said. He did not look at David. He kept his tone flat, like you do when you're telling someone the truth. You can survive. We'll recommend you to the ordinance. Rodriguez stepped into the conversation with a printed sheet. City committee at noon, he said. You should attend. They'll call your PDF Exhibit A. And the regional's smile left. Finally, he lifted the deck back into his briefcase, metal clasp sounding like a seatbelt. We'll see you at head office, he said, and made it sound like a weather report. He left a chill he hadn't paid for. At 11, the dining room opened. First through the door, a man in steel-toe boots and a fresh haircut. He flinched at the napkins like they might be made of bone. Emma met him halfway. Window or corner, she asked. She said it like choice was porridge. He chose window. He chose to leave his hat in his lap like a ceremony. She poured water. She didn't make his hands justify the table. Then a woman in a suit with shoulders that knew how to pull a door. She carried a folder stamped with a state seal. She sat near the tea light and ordered soup and answered 3 work texts, with her face turned away. Like manners were a religion she remembered but didn't practice. Luis brought bread and didn't hover. Chef sent empanadas back on a plate with a sprig of cilantro, like a green comma. By noon, the committee streamed. The ordinance passed out of committee with a vote that surprised exactly no one who had listened. The mayor's liaison texted exactly 2 words. We moved, and a third. 5 minutes later, seat audit in 4 weeks. Aiden forwarded it to the staff thread. Emma posted a photo of the grace sign. Luis posted a photo of the tea light. Rodriguez posted a picture of the evidence seal with his initials, and the caption, We remember. At 1, the door opened and the influencer came in without the lamp and without armor. Snow had made her hair human. She stood in the doorway like a person considering a church and a courtroom. We seat everyone, Emma said, neither smile nor frown. She moved to the host stand without hurry. The woman blinked, throat working. "I wanted to record an apology," she said. The sentence wore more makeup than she did. "My PR." "No," Emma said gently. "You want soup." The influencer's mouth pulled into a shape that might have been a cry if she'd been alone. She nodded once. "Soup," she said. "Fine." Luis seated her near the kitchen, where the pass light warmed faces. Maria set down a spoon with hands that didn't shake. The woman looked at the spoon like it was doing something brave. As she ate, the door opened again, and the linen man from that first night stepped in with a throat that had learned humility. He didn't meet anyone's eyes. He took off his hat. He held it properly. He stood in line behind a contractor in reflective stripes, and in front of a grandmother with a church hat. He waited. David watched from the bar with a posture that admitted gravity existed. He had a printed sheet in his pocket. At 2, when the staff had a breath, he stood at the end of the bar and read his own letter out loud. The one he'd written in the office at 4 a.m. The one with no euphemisms and several verbs. He didn't cry. He didn't sell. He said, "I'm sorry." Once, he said, "I was taught." Once, he said, "I'm unlearning." Twice, the staff didn't clap. Chef nodded. Emma passed him a glass of water like a sacrament. Luis said, "Make schedule fair, because forgiveness does accounting." Maria's mother pressed a paper bag into his hand and said nothing. "You needed a dictionary for." By 3, the old couple from the night before returned with a jar of preserves and a story about a grandson who read the restaurant's post and cried for a minute out of nowhere in the hardware aisle. It felt like the world turned its shoulder. The old man said, "The good way." Aidan said thank you in a tone that meant he would remember their names when he was 80. At 4, a delivery arrived. Candles. The invoice had a note, "No charge, keep it lit," and a doodle of a flame with sunglasses. Emma set aside a case for staff apartments that couldn't afford electricity in February. She took one out, lit it, and watched the smoke curl like ribbon until the flame steadied. The city liaison slid in at 5 with cheeks bright from the walk, and a draft stamped with more signatures than an overtime sheet. She ordered a sandwich, left a copy of the ordinance on the host stand for the staff to graffiti with highlighters, and told a story about the corporation council laughing for the first time in months. He said metrics make better pillows than platitude. She said. Aidan said, "He can have our old slide deck to stuff." At 6, a florist in a denim jacket stopped by with a crate from a bunch of servers across town. She said, "They pooled tips. Inside, flowers that didn't match carnations. Roses. Mum's holding on." Emma scattered them into jars. She put one at the pass and one on the host stand, and one near the safe, because someone had to love the square thing that had held their paper spine. Outside, the sky went pink at the edges and then gray again, like it had remembered a meeting. Inside, the tea lights freckled the tables. Service became a rhythm that had nothing to prove. The spoon clinked against bowls. The bell at the pass pinged polite. Aidan touched the candle at 7 without touching it. Heat found his hand. At 8, David's phone lit with a regional number. He didn't answer. He turned it face down and handed the extra power pack to Luis because a busser's phone had to last until the last table left. He returned to polishing glasses, each circle a penance that worked better than 90-minute modules. At 9, the influencer stood and left a little stack of cash under her spoon. She didn't make eye contact with her phone. She made it with Maria. "Thank you," she said. It sounded like a person, not a channel. Maria nodded. "Next time ask if you can film," she said. "Half-price policy if you promise to be kind." The woman huffed a laugh that almost worked. "Deal," she said, and then, deadpan, "But I'll still edit out the moments where I look stupid. You'll have to leave it blank," Maria said, and for once the room let itself laugh. At closing, Chef shut off the pass light, a small dusk. Rodriguez checked the seals one more time. His initials under the tape looked like they'd learned how to stay. Emma counted cash and wrote a ledger entry that began "Training Stipend Fund Incoming, $47. David wiped a table and bent to pick up a dropped fork and did not feel less because of it. Aiden stood at the window. The bridge carried cars like blood cells under streetlights that didn't brag. He pulled out his phone and typed to his mother, "Cinnamon tomorrow, holding a room open for you." He didn't add a heart. He didn't need to. He turned back to the room. Chairs up, floors mopped, the safe closed with a sound that meant "not yet" and "still here." He reached for the final tea light at the host stand and watched it flicker toward the draft. For a second it threatened to go. He cupped his hand and it straightened. He didn't touch it. He didn't need to. Outside, somewhere down the block, a voice complained that the city was going soft, that restaurants were for some people and not others. That change would ruin the soup. Inside, a room that had fallen and stood again, whispered back with clean floors and paid overtime, and a grace sign no one had torn down. The candle burned to a button of light. Aiden set the cap over it, and the flame went out gentle. Heat held a fingerprint in the air. He left his hand there and felt it. Then he locked the door. At its heart, this story isn't about a restaurant or a policy, it's about dignity. And what happens when ordinary people decide that silence is no longer survival. Meridian becomes more than a dining room. It becomes a mirror, reflecting how bias hides in habits, in tone, in who we choose to see. Every character, Aiden, Emma, Maria, even those who faltered, walks through fire to understand that fairness isn't a slogan, it's a daily practice. As the saying goes, gold doesn't fear the fire. True integrity shines brighter when it's tested. The story reminds us that systems don't change because of outrage alone. They change when people document, persist, and refuse to turn away. Grace here is not politeness. It's courage. It's the choice to stand firm, to acknowledge harm, and to rebuild without revenge. And it tells us that sometimes justice begins not in courtrooms or headlines, but in small rooms where someone quietly says, "This isn't right," and another answers, "You're not alone." In real life, we face our own versions of this story: unfair treatment, unseen prejudice, the pressure to stay quiet for comfort's sake. This story asks us to look deeper, to speak when silence protects cruelty, to stand beside those whose voices are dismissed, and to see humanity as something shared, not ranked. If this story moved you, tell me what part stayed with you. Share your own experience of speaking up or learning to listen. Leave a comment below. Press like to keep these conversations alive. And subscribe for more stories that challenge and heal in equal measure. May your evening be quiet, your courage steady, and your heart open to the small lights that survive every storm.